All right. We are live. We are back with the live streams for right now, anyways. And I am live with friend of the channel and the biggest Bulls fan I know, here to really break it down for us, you guys. Friend of the channel, Super Mario Hoops 24. We haven't been live since before Christmas, so before we get started, how you doing, man? What's going on over there?
I'm doing pretty good. School obviously like ramped up again.
Yep.
Things kind of started off a little hectic. I turned 21 since the last time that we went live. I guess I just
So,
exposed my age, but it is what it is.
cheers to that.
Cheers. I This water bottle's empty, but I've been staying hydrated the right way.
Good, man.
But I guess I'm excited to dive into the game because I have a lot of perspectives to, take like on the whole game.
Well, if you guys are just watching for the first time and you don't know who Super Mario Hoops is, go look at his YouTube channel, check out his content. The biggest Bulls fan that I know, and I always like to say this, one of the biggest NBA history fans that I've ever met. And cheers to you turning 21. Cheers to this game. If you guys got a drink at home, go ahead and crack it open, even if it's water. I got a water right next to me. Let's talk about this Phoenix Suns victory, 127 to 124. But I feel like the score doesn't really explain the game that well because this was kind of, in a way, all Phoenix. So let me take a sip of this and then we'll dive right into it. Also, shout out to my guy, Hitman X, longtime supporter of the channel. And he's even been on the channel once and he really knows his stuff. So shout out to my guy, Hitman X. Shout out to DJ Mike and David and everybody that's in here. Doke, if I said that right, Doke Potatoes, he keeps leaving Suns in 4 on my channel, which I appreciate the comment. He keeps leaving that every single video, and he says that he's going to keep leaving that comment until he is on the channel one day. So I appreciate the support, I guess. I don't know, but yeah,
maybe
man.
He's close with the one guy, like that guy from the Nuggets series or whatever, that was like repping the Suns in 4.
Maybe it's the same guy, but I appreciate anybody and everybody's support. And make sure to Hulk smash that like button, you guys. We're going to be talking about this game. I have a hunch that Super Mario Hoops is going to be doing most of the talking in terms of the Suns and Bulls game because, spoiler alert, there's probably going to be a rant coming up. And then later, we're going to talk about the NBA trade deadline and just kind of give our thoughts on that. So stick around afterwards. We're going to be talking the NBA trade deadline. And really, we're going to be talking about whatever we want. So, Super Mario Hoops, go for it, man. What happened tonight, man? I mean, before you start, though, I'll just say this, and I'll probably say it a few times, is I feel like the Suns' hot start really was the X factor of this game, and the Bulls had to climb back into it. So go ahead, man. Let it all out.
Well, even like from what I saw, like it wasn't just that the Suns started hot. Of course they did because, Devin Booker had like 16 points in the first quarter. I think it was 6 or 7 or something.
Yeah, 22,
and
I think, at the end of the first half.
Yeah, like he was just in his zone, and he ended with like just under 40. So, like, I mean, of course we could be like, yeah, like we don't have Lonzo, we don't have Caruso, so more times than not, like Booker probably won't have as many opportunities where he has 16-point quarters if we were to play again. But at the same time, it's like the effort was just terrible. Like
especially in the first half.
Yeah, it's not like just Devin Booker was going off, but even Chris Paul, like all game. I don't know what he shot, but it seemed like he didn't miss. What was he?
Paul was 7 for 11. He had 19 points, 11 assists.
Yeah, and then at the same time, it's like Mikal Bridges was like hitting a ton of shots early on. It kind of like I think demoralized our team a little bit. But the good thing is that at least we were still moving the ball on offense a lot. I don't know if you saw in the first quarter. The Bulls had 7 assists. They only had 1 turnover. Like that's pretty good. A 7-to-1 assist to turnover ratio is pretty good. At the same time, though, the Suns were even better because they had like a 10-to-1 ratio. And then it got even worse in the second quarter because we went from 7 assists and 1 turnover to still 7 assists. We didn't have a single assist in the whole second quarter, but we had 6 more turnovers.
One thing I noticed One thing I noticed, you guys finished with 18 assists, but at one point you guys only had 12 assists. And I feel like for an NBA team, especially as good as the Bulls, that's really low. Sorry to interrupt you, but I that was one thing that stood out to me.
No, you're right, and it's because, especially when I feel like I don't know, like people will probably be, and even Romp says it right there, like, too much isolation from the Bulls. Like, I feel like too many people, will laugh at this or something, but Alex Caruso having him there, it's not just because of his defense, but also like what he brings as a communicator, what he brings to the offense. I feel like the ball moves a lot better like when he's out there. And we started moving the ball like early on and then kind of at the end of the game too. But like that whole middle section, like it's hard to kind of just play a game for 2 quarters and expect to win because that's kind
Facts.
of what we did.
What the
And
Suns used to do back in the day.
and that's why I was even like surprised that we lost by 3. Like, given
Right.
like we're missing people, I thought we sucked. Honestly, I thought this was one of our worst games, and especially the way we played lately. I think we're like 7-11 in our last 18. Okay, the Suns haven't lost 11 games all year.
Exactly.
So, and the fact that we were playing like this, it's like, dude, like we could have won this if we did a few more things right, but we just simply didn't. Um, but yeah, and like I don't know, like it just didn't seem like we had the effort like coming out from the jump. I liked Javante Green's effort.
He's
I know you look at the stats, he probably didn't have a great game because he had like I think what was it 4 points. And he was like 1 of 5 from the field. He also had 8 rebounds though. He was always crashing. He was kind of getting people involved. So I really like his effort. His defense was nice. Can't say that about a lot of the Bulls today. But like, even like guys like DeRozan early on, like it seemed like he was forcing stuff, making bad decisions, and like kind of just lazy. I don't know if you saw, like, for example, open in the second quarter, I think we were down 7. It was like 36-29. And it's like, here come the Bulls, and they throw it to DeRozan, and he just like drops it out of bounds or something. And then like we get a
turnovers.
and then we get like a 3-on-1. Normally you want to go to the basket. And it's funny because people like to say, this whole change in the game with the 3-point shot is credited to Steph Curry. And I think it's bigger than just Steph Curry. And especially when people criticize moments like this, like I feel like I'm trying to protect, him in that sense, where it's like when you have a 3-on-1 and you're taking a 3, why aren't you taking a layup? Makes no sense at all. So it's just like dumb decisions by the Bulls. And
Effort.
luckily, like we had, it's funny because you guys play Philly tomorrow and we played them yesterday and now we played today. So it's like in 3 straight days, like you have the 3 best closers in the NBA playing against each other: DeMar DeRozan, Chris Paul, Joel Embiid. And luckily, we had one of those guys on our team in DeMar DeRozan, who was just going off. I think he had, 15 in the last quarter?
Yeah.
But, Zach LaVine, he kind of was heating up a little in the third. But I don't know. Like, I just saw a lot, like, of bad stuff. Vucevic has got to be better.
Right.
Like, it's simple as that. I don't know. I kind of want to ask you, like, what did you see, like, from Vucevic in this game?
Not much, to be honest. I mean, yeah, he did have 13 and 12, but I didn't really see too much. And I agree with you because didn't he recently have like a 30 and 18 game? Where's that all-star Vooch? And
He hasn't been there.
exactly. And maybe
really
he's the the X factor to your guys' Bulls season, but he's got to be better. And I just want to just say something real quick about the whole Alex Caruso thing. And as you know, you guys didn't have Lonzo Ball. You were talking about the ball movement, and I was talking about the assists being pretty low, even though you guys did finish with 18. They said this on the broadcast, and I do want to get your opinion later about Ayo Dosunmu. I hope I said that right. They said that since taking over for Lonzo Ball, he's been averaging 7 assists. That's insane. Tonight, he was terrible. Like, he had a terrible game. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But yeah, in terms of Vucevic, I don't really know if he's having that great of a season. I think he's been a little inconsistent from what I have seen from him. He hasn't been that all-star Vucevic. He hasn't been the Vucevic that we've seen in Orlando. I don't know if it's injuries, but he is, the Bulls obviously have lots of great players, but he should be one of your quote big three. And I don't know if we've seen that from him this season. So
yeah, I mean, it's been abysmal really from him, like to say the least. Like I'm trying to, I just pulled up his game logs. I'm trying to like remember which games like he played well. I mean, I remember that this Charlotte game, he had a 30, 14, and 5, and he was really nice. And he was good one game against Atlanta. I remember the other game he was like playing really soft, and then he was good, like you said, like the other night against Indiana. I don't even think he was really that good against Toronto necessarily, even though he dropped 30 points. He plays too soft, like too much of the time, and that's exactly what he did today. Like I don't understand why.
That's why I didn't notice him.
Like, why do they keep they keep wanting to isolate Vucevic against DeAndre Ayton in the post? It makes no sense. Or even JaVale McGee, because like, and I even looked at this because I was interested. Like originally, like when they came into the league, I guess like Vucevic was listed at like 7 foot and DeAndre Ayton was like 6'11". And then I was looking at like the updated stuff because how they did like that height update recently.
Yeah.
And it said on there like
the players got shorter.
Yeah, it said like Ayton was technically like 7'1", while Vucevic is like 6'10". Because I'm like, it looks like Ayton's way bigger than him. Looks like he's way stronger than him. Looks like he's just bigger than him. Like, bigger build. So it just makes no sense to keep posting him up, especially how soft Vucevic is. Like, doesn't make sense. But yeah, like, I don't know. He needs to get his stuff together and fast, or else, I don't know, after Thursday, he might be waking up in Indiana. Like,
do you think maybe it's because the Bulls, made so many different moves and he's still trying to get figured out with this new team? Kind of like how we saw last year with the Suns. It kind of took them a while to start gelling. And I mean, it obviously doesn't help that Lonzo and Caruso and a few other guys are hurt. But do you think maybe that's it? I'm not trying to like make excuses, but I mean, maybe is it injuries? Is it COVID? I hate to say that, but
I mean, I do think maybe part of it is the fact that when coming into the season, I think people might have thought Vucevic would be the number 2 behind LaVine.
Yeah.
Personally, I didn't think that was going to happen. I had a feeling it was going to be DeRozan and LaVine, and then Vucevic
he's playing a different role, is what you're saying.
Yeah, into like the third main option. But at the same time, it's like he doesn't get a rhythm like at all, and it hurts our team at points because it's like you look at the guys off the bench, especially, and I know like I'll kind of wait for that rant like with the trade deadline, but just like our bench bigs, like Tyler Cook, he's really undersized. I think he gives effort at times as well, but he's just not quite the guy you could play as a backup 5. Tony Bradley.
Your boy Tony Bradley.
I've said everything I need to about Tony Bradley. My Twitter bio, my quote says Tony Bradley can get deported for all I care. That's how I feel about Tony Bradley.
Tony Bradley's biggest fan here, ladies and gentlemen.
But it's like, and then you got Vucevic who can't do anything defensively. I mean, and like the Sixers game the other day, for example, like Embiid had like 42, I think he did, because like teams just exposed Vucevic in the post. And especially, then it all ties back to Billy Donovan and the fact that it's like he doesn't make adjustments on the defensive end. I won't say all of them. I think probably 80%, at least 80% of the Bulls fans that I've seen like to protect Billy Donovan at all costs. And I'm like, why? Like this is the same guy that was playing Kyle Singler big minutes on the KD Russ Thunder.
I remember that.
It's the same guy that played Raymond Felton big minutes in the playoffs with Westbrook and Paul George. It's the same guy that played who was the other guy? Who was it, like Alex Abrines or whatever, like big minutes?
Yeah, I remember that.
I think it was the team with Chris Paul. Like,
yeah,
it just
I haven't heard that name in a minute.
Yeah, and like over guys like maybe Jeremy Grant or Cameron Payne, like Cam Payne, who he didn't play today.
Cam Payne's he's been injured. Yeah, he's out.
Okay, maybe that was on me. But no, like the point is, like, Billy Donovan, to me, like, he still has a lot to prove as a coach.
Right.
And the way you're not making adjustments, I was actually talking with Romp the other day when they played the Sixers about how, why don't the Bulls go in the zone? Like, the way they keep going at Embiid. I mean, the Mavericks literally went in zone on Friday, and it torched the Sixers. I think the
The
Sixers dropped
Suns
like
struggle sometimes
10.
when teams go into the zone too.
And
So
that's why I was thinking, like, maybe you could even do it against Phoenix.
mhm.
I think the Lakers did that in game 2 and 3 last year, and those
Yeah.
were some of their most successful games.
Hmm.
So it's just doesn't really make sense. But yeah, like, especially when you have a guy like Vucevic there, he's not going to be elite defensively. You got to give him some support. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Like, and a lot of our bench right now, like, other than Kobe White, is pretty much like useless, to say the least. I will credit Malcolm Hill because, like, when the game seemed like it was over, he almost brought us back. But other
Right.
than that, like, no, like, everyone else on the bench, well, and Kobe White, I don't know if I excluded him already, but the point is, like,
He played good tonight. He played good.
we need, like, some adjustments to be made. And yeah, like, tonight was just another example of it, like, the low effort, kind of like careless play. And again, I was surprised the outcome was even as close as it was.
Well, before we continue on, this is another reason I'm so happy you're on the channels because you can rant and vent about the Bulls all you want. And, it's awesome. I want to give a couple quick shout outs to Romp 2.0. If you guys don't know, Romp and I are planning on going live tomorrow for the Suns and Sixers game. And Super Mario, you were obviously invited onto that. I think it'd be a good trio of all three of us being on there. And then let me find the comment. Shout out to my guy Cody, if I can find it. He says, shout out to Suns Geek. The Bulls used to be untouchable back in the day. They owned the 90s with Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman. Those were the days. Hulk smash that like button. And yes, you guys, Hulk smash the like button because we are 17 minutes in and it's going to be a rant session on the Bulls. We're also going to talk about the NBA trade deadline. And, you're spitting facts over here about your Chicago Bulls. So I'm so glad you were on the channel. And then, I've seen a couple comments on here, like Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball are the glue around the defense. And, it was all Caruso and Ball. They held it together as the glue. The defense plummets without them. You've been talking about, certain choices that Billy Donovan made and defense by the Bulls. One thing that I saw was just, again, lack of effort. I mean, I hit my mic. There was just so many times tonight where it seemed like guys had wide open shots. I think Candace Parker, who I absolutely adore, by the way, Candace Parker is so good on NBA TV. I think she was the one that broke it down. She basically said that, like, when the Phoenix Suns are taking you to a half-court game with their ball movement, it's game over. Like, no matter how good your defense is, that's what I saw tonight. Just incredible ball movement from the Phoenix Suns, wide open shots. And I know you remember this. I want to say it was around the third quarter. Devin Booker had somebody turned the ball over. And then Devin Booker was wide open in the corner, and he literally took one dribble, took his time, and just drained the three. And Derozan grabbed the ball, chucked it at the stanchion.
Yep.
Dude, if I were Billy Donovan, my team would be running laps after the game. Like, that was unacceptable defense. But it's not just that. I saw that lots of times tonight from, like, Mikal Bridges. I think they forgot to do the scouting report on Mikal Bridges tonight. And I don't know.
They forgot to do the scouting report on everybody tonight.
Exactly. Like,
not just Mikal Bridges.
Like, I want to make excuses for your Bulls because, you're a good friend of the channel and everything. And I know you're such a passionate Bulls fan, but, like, I can't, man, because the Suns had players out too. But the Suns came out with great defense tonight, great energy. They seemed focused. They seemed locked in. But that's what's so weird about tonight's game was we only won by 3 points. Like, I don't understand basketball, man. Like, back in the 90s and all that, like, this would have been an absolute blowout. No matter how good your defense is, offense always trounces it. And I want to give a shout out once again to my guy, Cody, who says, just showing love and support for Suns Geek. Thank you so much, Cody. You didn't have to do that, man. You're such a good friend of my brother and I appreciate you, man. So once again, shout out to Cody. So any thoughts on my little rant there that I just went on?
I mean, and that's why you hear people saying, like, the MVP, Derozan. Let me show this too.
I do want to talk about Derozan later. I thought he was really good. That's an awesome hoodie.
Thanks. I got it for Christmas. But I mean, like when it seemed like we had no chance, you even on
Right.
Twitter, you're like GG,
Yeah,
and you tagged
I
me in it.
jinxed us, bro. I
And,
completely jinxed us.
and who was it too? I'm like, it's not over till it's over. And what was it
Yeah,
like, Metal Mike or
yeah,
something?
that's my guy, Metal
He's like,
Mike,
it's
right there.
over or like it's done. And then sure enough, like DeMar DeRozan, like wills
Dude,
us back out of the dead. You know, it seemed like we
I
had no
think you
chance.
guys cut it to a 12-point game, and it was right
Mhm.
after I tweeted that. So
And we were
it
down, I
makes
think,
no
like
sense.
20. We got down like 25 because I think you guys hit like a quick two
Yep.
early in the fourth. But my point is that like, and it's not that he was really just scoring because he was also like finding people too. Like that's
Yep.
why I say like the ball movement was a lot better in the fourth. I mean, dude, you know how hard it is to get Tony Bradley two open chances at the rim and he makes them? Like, dude,
DeMar
the
DeRozan tonight, 36 minutes, 16 for 27 from the field, 38 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals. That's incredible.
exactly. And I mean, it's just something like inside, like personally with the big men. See, and that's I don't even think I said this like when we were talking about Caruso, but you know, Vucevic, we already know he's not a great defender, but he's also not great at communicating. And even for example, like when you talked about like when Devin Booker shot that three where he kind of just took his time, I also thought it was kind of embarrassing, like when JaVale McGee made a three and he
Right?
just looked down at the line. Like that was embarrassing. But like when Booker made his and then DeRozan like, you know, whipped the ball at the stanchion, like you got Vucevic looking around like all confused.
Yeah, I saw that too.
He's like one of those mumbler guys. And
Mhm.
let me tell you, as someone who's played basketball like for several years in my life, those people might be some of the worst teammates. I've
Yep.
played with probably 3, 4, 5 every year, you know, it seemed like. And they'd just be like, oh, and they like wouldn't know who to blame. They wouldn't know who to do. It's like, dude, part of that comes from you. You know, the rim protector, the big man, is supposed to be the most important part of the defense. That's what people say all the time.
DeAndre
And
Ayton.
exactly. And even then, it's like you guys also have Chris Paul, who's one of your defensive coordinators. At least like
Yep.
he's communicating and stuff.
Oh yeah, all the time.
That,
You know he's barking at players.
that's where Alex Caruso comes in because he's
Yeah.
always talking. And then I know Javante Green, you know, he does a pretty solid job as well. But there's only so much that one guy can do, especially when he doesn't really play like a normal role. Like he didn't even play half the game today. So I mean, that's just like kind of what I think as well from the defensive end. I think they even put like a key. They said the Bulls have two keys, like on NBA TV today. They're like both DeRozan and Levine have to score 20 plus. Well, they both scored 30 plus, and then they have to hold the Suns to under 100. Well, they didn't do that in 3 quarters. You know, they had over 100 after the third quarter, actually, like with 2 minutes left. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that kind of like I agreed with them about what they said about the Suns, but when they said DeRozan and Levine have to have 20 or whatever, I was like, what? I was like, they're
yeah,
gonna do that anyways. Like, I don't care if you're playing the
that
worst or best team. Now, maybe keeping the Suns under 100 points, that is right. But I'm like, even then the Suns could still win. I mean, it was last game. I think we beat the Wizards like 95-80, and we didn't even score 100. So like that was a
that
little
was
weird.
That was also confusing to me. I'm like, you should put like they both need 30 or something
Right?
like that.
Or you need
Um,
to play better defense, not leave Devin Booker wide open in the corner. Like,
well, and I knew the Bulls were gonna give up a lot of points today. Like I just had a
yeah,
feeling. But maybe like the limit could have been like 110 to be
yeah,
realistic. I mean, even if they held them to 110, like you know, I know obviously the game would have like a different scenario, like play by play, but you know, theoretically speaking, like the Bulls would win. But I mean, I don't know. Like I just think that there needs to be some changes, whether it's something that happens at the trade deadline or something with the player personnel or, you know, like the leadership on the team and, you know, like a team meeting or whatever, more
right.
practice. I don't know like what it is, but I don't know.
I
It's
mean, team
weird.
meetings aren't always bad, despite what the media might say about them. Sometimes players need to just kick their own asses and, kick the coaches out of the room and just go at it, and I'm sure the Suns have done that many times in the past before and after Chris Paul. So, that's not necessarily bad. But one thing that stood out to me is the 3-point shooting for both teams tonight. Surprisingly, the Suns only had 12 threes made, 37%. Your Bulls had only 10 threes. That was one thing that kind of stood out to me. And it's just so weird. Like, I don't know if the Suns just decided, you know what, we already won this game. We're just going to just take our foot off the gas. Only a 3-point win, but that doesn't really, like, describe the game, if you will. This was a game full of runs, as we obviously saw at the end. The Suns cut it a little too close. They might want to work on that tomorrow against the Sixers, who are a really good team. And I do kind of want to give the Bulls credit, though. I know you've kind of been ranting about them. I thought they started off the third quarter extremely well. They were forcing the Suns turnovers, and they were playing great defense and just hitting shots. But then there was just a little bit of a small stretch where just the Suns kept answering back. It didn't matter who you threw on Devin Booker. He was going to score the ball. And then, in my opinion, that was it. And another thing that stood out to me was it felt like the Suns would go on these big runs in under 2 minutes. Did you see that at all? I mean, there were so many times there was like an 11-2 run in like under 2 minutes, or a 12-2 run. And even when the Bulls cut it to 12, JaVale McGee scored, and just the lead kept piling on. So that's why I keep saying, like, I think it was the Suns' hot start, just the Bulls not having any great defense in the first quarter. So, yeah.
Yeah, and like they even said on the broadcast, like, for the Bulls, like, if they want to get back in the game, like, they got to take advantage of what they're good at. And one of the things that they're best at is fast break points. And I don't know what they ended up as, but I remember, so fast break points, the Bulls had 20, the Suns had 9. So the Bulls doubled them really in there, and they could add a lot more opportunities, but I don't know. It didn't seem like, they were really about that life. I don't know. I don't know.
And in all fairness, you guys are coming off a back-to-back. I hope the Suns don't, do the same thing tomorrow. I hope they, are responsive and play just as good as they did in this game against the Sixers. And we play the Bucks in a couple days too, trade deadline. So, yeah.
Well, I'm sure the Sixers will get up early, and then Doc Rivers will blow a lead. That's my prediction.
Once again, I don't know if he's still watching, but shout out to my guy Rom 2.0. We're planning on going live tomorrow, and you're invited to that. And if you guys are watching, make sure to tune into that live stream. Any other thoughts, takeaways? Did you want to talk about anything else Chicago Bulls related? I mean, we can always come back to this, but anything else you want to rant about?
We could talk about the Suns, I guess. I feel like we've only been talking about the Bulls.
Let's talk about the Suns.
This is Suns Geeks channel,
What in particular did you want to talk about? Was there anything that stood out to you, or do you have any questions for me regarding the Suns? Or we can look at the numbers if you want for the Suns.
I gotta hear, it's like, I think JaVale McGee played pretty well. Obviously that three was probably a little bit surprising, but I don't know. He makes them occasionally. But
did you guys? I'm sorry to cut you off. Did you see his little Magic Johnson-esque pass to Elfrid Payton? It was beautiful. It came off an inbound. He just grabbed it. He chucked it behind him. Elfrid Payton caught it. I think he missed, and then he tipped it back to himself. Beautiful pass.
I was trying to forget that memory from my mind.
Well, he was good, man. I thought he was active on the boards and getting points, and he was good, man.
But I think, too, like, the Suns, like, if teams are going to keep playing man against them, like, it's hard to stop them, like, in a pick and roll game, because they have not only do they have, the point guard, a floor general like Chris Paul, when you get Cameron Payne back, like, he's, really one of the quickest guards in the league. Devin Booker can play off that, and it's kind of dangerous.
Can run the pick and roll too.
Yeah, and it's kind of dangerous too, like, when he has the ball in his hands on the pick and roll, because, like, I feel like he's kind of taken one thing he's taken from Chris Paul probably over the last 2 years is, like, being patient, and not like, just trying to get to your spot, or, just trying to, get straight downhill. Like, he's kind of patient, and as a result, like, a lot of people end up maybe getting caught in and get fouls and stuff. But having guys like Ayton and JaVale McGee, Biyombo, which, he didn't really play that much today. I feel like he still should get a decent amount of time, though. I know, like, Ayton's back and stuff, but
talking about JaVale McGee or Biyombo?
Talking about Biyombo, because he only got 1 minute today, and it was like at the end. I feel like personally, like he probably should still have a solid role on the team. Maybe him and
Absolutely.
JaVale could like split or something like that.
Absolutely. Mhm.
But I don't know,
Yeah,
like you have 3 guys that all of them too are like extremely athletic. All of them can defend. You know,
good
none of
size
them
and strength,
can, shoot necessarily.
except for
You know,
JaVale McGee. No, I'm just
except for
kidding.
JaVale McGee tonight. And I mean, Aiden has a mid-range, but like I don't know, it's just like it's hard, to go up against that. And it's
Yeah,
not like too. I feel like they're bigs too. Like those 3 in particular, they kind of move well. Like they
yeah.
can kind of switch out on a guy on the perimeter. They can obviously guard
Especially
someone in the paint.
DeAndre Ayton. I feel like
Yeah.
DeAndre Ayton is underrated when it comes to that. He can do it on Steph Curry, believe it or not. He's that
Mhm.
good of a, guarding perimeter players and coming off switches and all that. And just real quick to cut you off, Bismack Biyombo has done a great job of just learning this offense and defense like that. I mean, it was like they probably had like a couple practices and they're like, you're good. Like, he's just done a great job. I agree with you about splitting the minutes. We arguably have the best backup, center rotation in the league. And by the way, Frank Kaminsky's still out, and we have a really good record when Frank Kaminsky plays. So I agree with you on that, man.
I mean, and I'm kind of in a way jealous that you guys didn't get Thaddeus Young after our Derozan trade went
Right.
down, but because I kind of want Biombo, it would have been nice if he was the backup on our team. Having a guy like that. I don't know if he was playing big minutes today. Who knows how the outcome could have changed? Because at least he communicates in defense. He's kind of an energy guy. He rebounds. We're terrible at rebounding too. I
Right.
think I checked yesterday or earlier today, we're like 27th in the league in rebounding.
We're not the best rebounding team either, but we beat you guys by 4 in that category tonight.
Yeah, and but I feel like too, like again with the center rotation, what I was gonna say is that having guys that can guard kind of both inside and out at a high level, like it makes it hard to expose them if you're a team that's gonna play, 5 out like the Warriors or like if the Nets played like that. It's not like Rudy Gobert necessarily, who when you draw him out, he's more exposable. Around the rim, he's one of the best, if not the best in the league. When you draw him around to the 3-point line, like he has his own flaws. It's hard to expose that, I think, with the big 3, the big 3 of the Suns. But yeah, I don't know what you think about that.
Well, real quick, I just want to get your. Well, hold on, I'm sorry. What did you ask me again? I'm kind of all over the place right now.
Well, no, we can do this comment first, and then we can.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to that. I'm sorry, man. So yeah, we have a question from the chat. Super Mario. Maybe I missed you guys discussing it. I don't think we talked about it. What did you guys think about those technicals? I'll just say this, and I've said it before, and I will say it again. I've defended the referees this season. Let me say that again. This season. But tonight, there was bad officiating on both sides. I don't care if you're the biggest Bulls fan. I don't care if you're the biggest Suns fan. I've never seen Jay Crowder get that mad. He got teed up early. Somebody else got teed up on the Suns.
Devin
It just
Booker
seemed like
and
Devin
JaVale
Booker.
McGee.
Yeah. I was like, was it McGee or Booker? It was. And then even on the Bulls side, I thought the Bulls got some bad calls, their way, and just questionable officiating. There was times where the game stopped and they had to review stuff. Like, you remember that one, like, I don't know if it was a charging foul on Zach LaVine when he bumped into Cam Johnson.
Yeah, that was
weird. Yeah. It's what did you think about the officiating tonight and all those technicals?
I mean, per usual, it sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, simply the refs, like as of late, like it's kind of dumb. Yeah, like they just don't. They're not consistent at all.
They did so good at the start of the season. They were great, man.
Like they say they want to do this like foul baiting rule, like we want to get rid of it, but at the same time, it's like you don't do anything about it. Like on both sides, I remember like Kobe White. I think he took like a jump shot or whatever, and I think it might have been like Mikal Bridges or whatever that fouled him, and I didn't really even think he did.
Was that when Bridges was laying on the floor? Or was that another play?
I'm not too sure.
I think I remember what you're talking about. My bad.
But like I'm like, dude, like that's not really anything. That's kind of acting. It's kind of like throwing yourself into him. And then on the other end, like Chris Paul did the same thing. Like when Kobe White was guarding him, and then they're like, he was shooting at the shot clock, or not the shot clock, the score thing, like the scores table.
Yeah.
And then they gave him like 3 free throws. I'm like, dude, what? Like, so the refs weren't good, to put it simply. What did I think about the technicals necessarily? I thought they were kind of lame. Probably the only one that maybe warranted one was like Jay Crowder, because you don't know what he said. He definitely got upset. I didn't really see.
I've never seen him that mad, to be honest, but I think he did deserve it, because that was early in the game. Like, dude, just let it go.
I didn't see exactly
he could have said something bad.
The Booker one, it was kind of off screen, and the JaVale one kind of seemed like lame. Like, didn't he just like throw his hand like whatever? Like, dude, if you're just doing this like whatever thing, I've never gotten a technical in my life, like when I played basketball. And I have done this before. I don't really ever talk and stuff, but I have done this a few times, and I've never gotten a technical for it. So just shows
I got a technical once on the bench, believe it or not. My coach was pissed.
How did that happen?
I don't remember what was happening. I think I was some like cocky sophomore, junior in high school, and I thought I knew everything. And this ref, I remember he was like at the corner, and I was just right behind him, and I don't know what I even said, but he turned around, technical foul, he pointed at me, and I just sat down. I was like, I'll never forget that. Like, that was so embarrassing.
Like, who was it the other day? Oh, Julius Randle the other day. Like, just talking for no reason. I think they were like even winning against the Lakers, but
like the refs have the hardest job in the league, and that's why this season I'll kind of defend them. But tonight it was bad, man. Or not in the league. They had the hardest job in the world, besides our medical professionals and all that. But
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can defend them, because it's like, see, they were consistent for about 2 or 3 weeks with the rules, and that's why you saw guys like Damian Lillard, Trae Young, James Harden, like Luka Doncic. They were all playing, it seemed like, in a different way.
They were struggling, kind of.
Like, after, it seems like ever since December started, they said, screw that. Like, we're going back to the old ways, and even softer, because like they called like a crazy foul that I think that's how the Suns had to use their challenge, right, on JaVale McGee. Wasn't even close to a foul.
Right.
It was just Vucevic acted. He went like that, like a butterfly or whatever, like leaving the area. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think that pretty much puts a bow on that right there. It's inconsistent officiating, but I am glad the league kind of stepped in. There's other things the NBA needs to step in on Ben Simmons. But yeah, so I don't know. Hopefully it gets better. Hopefully it gets better when it actually matters for both your team and mine, the playoffs. And yeah, man, let me just go over some numbers real quick, and then I think we will move on. Just such a weird ending to this game. 127, 124. Suns shoot 54%. Your Bulls, 48%. Let's be real. Let's round it out a little bit. We talked about the rebounding, 44-40. Suns win that by 4. 31 assists tonight for the Phoenix Suns. 18. We kind of went over that earlier, but I will say this. Whenever the Suns have 25 assists or more, they are a tough team to beat. They had 31 tonight. I think a game like a week ago or so, they had like 36 assists. Like, this team is just incredible when the ball is moving, when it's zipping around, when they assist. It is great. And that brings my point back to Ayo Dosunmu, who, again, on the broadcast, I didn't know this. They said he's been averaging like 7 assists since Lonzo Ball got hurt and all that. That's insane. Yeah. Before we kind of wrap up this Suns Bulls talk, which, by the way, guys, in the chat, stick around, because we're going to be talking about the NBA trade deadline. And I'm going to be picking Super Mario's brain here. By the way, go subscribe to Super Mario Hoops. Check out his YouTube content, and make sure to go subscribe and follow him, and make sure to smash the like button on this live stream. We're almost 40 minutes in, but Ayo Dosunmu, steal of the draft. Let's be real. He's going to be in the Rising Stars, whatever it is now, tournament. I call it the Rising Stars game. That's what it was called back in my day and all that. So I know he had a really bad game tonight, but the guy has been a standout. He's been taking advantage of players being out, and he's obviously one of the upcoming rookies in this league and a really good player. what have you seen from him? Because you obviously watch way more Bulls games than I do. I've only seen the fancy highlights. I've only seen the dunks. I've only seen him have 14 assists in a game once. So what have you seen from him that maybe us Suns fans have not seen?
I think personally, like he's really like confident as a rookie. Like you see a lot of these
Yeah.
guys who, aren't, and they kind of shake in the moment. I think like, it's funny because when they played Portland, I compared him to Anthony Simons, but
Hmm.
now Anthony Simons, like he's in like year 4, year 5. I think he's in year
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
His first
Still a
few
young
years,
player.
his like first year, second year, that guy was scared to touch the basketball court. I don't know if you remember the bubble, but even though the Blazers, remember when they had like 6 or 7 dudes like on their
Yeah.
roster, they were injuries riddled like all throughout the whole year, especially the bubble, and they
Excuse
couldn't
me.
even play him because he was so scared to touch the floor. That's why
Right.
Gary Trent Jr. blossomed so much in the bubble because he took Anthony Simons' role. But
Right.
you see from Ayo Dosunmu, it's like he kind of had some of those similar traits, but he kind of has that confidence as well from the jump. And I think like as a true distributor, like I made a tweet a few days ago. It was a week ago from tomorrow, so like last Tuesday, and it was at the time it was the 6th game in the season where Ayo Dosunmu had gotten 8+ assists in a game, and he got
Oof.
9 in that game. And then over that last stretch, last 10 games, he had gotten 5 of them over that stretch. And then he was also averaging 13 points on like 56, 43, 85 shooting splits. I mean, that's
That's
crazy,
crazy.
and it's like all the guys that we're missing, we're missing like 2 of our top defenders as well. And he's also a really good defender too. I wouldn't say he's, Lonzo level or Caruso level necessarily, but he's still a really good defender. And I think like it's really weird because we might be the only team where we could say like our guards carry our defense, and he plays a big role in that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that personally for me, like, and I think especially over the past few games, I don't know if you saw like uh, the game against who was it, Indiana, and he threw down that mean dunk to like seal
Oh
the
God.
game, and
Yeah.
then he threw down another one on Drummond in fast break yesterday. So like
Right.
I feel like every time he plays, like he probably gets more confidence, and as time goes on, like he'll probably be like one of the key players in the team. Probably be like down the line, him, Kobe White, Patrick Williams when he comes back, uh, like some of these other guys, maybe Derrick Jones Jr. But I mean, we'll have to see. But I don't know. Like I think that I guess to answer your question, Ayo Dosunmu, he's been very impressive, and I would have to agree he is the steal of the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at his numbers here, and I'm not gonna lie, like, I actually didn't know that he was only 6'4", 200 pounds. He looks a lot bigger than that. And I know that, like, in the NBA, these guys are long and athletic and all that, but he stands out a little bit. That's one thing that's kind of stood out to me is even though he's 6'4", he kind of stands out. And looking at his numbers this month in February, 9.5 assists. Now, granted, he had a really bad game tonight, but in the Sixers game, he had 7 assists. Pacers, 14 assists, 8 assists against the Raptors, 9 assists against the Magic, and just taking advantage of his opportunity and
And I
to
will
steal the
also
draft.
add, I am kind of happy like that the Rising Stars Challenge, like the format has changed from
Right,
like USA versus World, and then
right.
like they added like even more players to that because like when I made my predictions, I thought like like he kind of deserves it the way he's playing as of late, but the way he's played for the totality of the season, they're probably not going to award him as a top 10 USA player in the Rising Stars, which
Which they
sucks.
really
But
should.
yeah, and like it really like if you pick the top 20 rising stars, he would be in it. But it's like, like top 10 in the USA makes it harder because you also got to account for guys like Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball, and those guys are literally like all-star caliber players already.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm kind of glad for that. But yeah, I did kind of have one more point I was gonna say about like the game.
Yeah, go for it.
With well, and even ties back to Billy Donovan. Like when he started the fourth quarter and we were down like 17, I kind of felt like it wasn't like impossible to come back from that. And I even said in that tweet, I know I was kind of like joking where it's like, it's not over till it's over. But I kind of felt like, it's not really over. Like we could come back. Like we've done it before, like the Celtics game, for example, earlier in the year. But I don't know. I thought like him when he put the starters out there, like he had Levine, he had DeRozan out there, he had every starter out there, I think, except Vucevic. And I was like, okay, like I kind of mess with this because like we're gonna make a run right now while you guys have your bench in. I saw like Booker was putting on like a shooting shirt or whatever. He's like, all right, time to go home. Like that's probably like what he was thinking. But it's like, no, like you guys are gonna have to finish us. But then at the same time, it's like at the end of the game with 2 minutes left, you take everyone out when the Suns just took everybody out. So it's like, and the game was only a 3-point game at the end. Like, can you imagine if we had our starters out there, we're pushing the ball up the floor? Like, I don't know if you saw, like, we were down 5 in this game with 25 seconds left. I'm like, okay, you have to foul now. They didn't foul at all, and they let them take like 17 seconds off the clock. I'm like, well, that's just inexperience right there.
That's one thing I will say negative about the Suns, and please don't cancel me, Suns fans, because when I call out the Suns, sometimes you guys like to try to cancel me. But sometimes we get a little cocky. Sometimes we have to bring our starters back in, which I feel like at this level, with how great the Suns have played, that's kind of embarrassing. I mean, you should be. I guess that's really my whole thing. I said this on a previous live stream, like maybe a week or two ago. I was like, yeah, the Suns are the best clutch team in the NBA, and that's great. But like, I don't know if we really want to be known as that. I want to be known as teams that, we're the team that just shuts you out in the fourth quarter and dominates. And I get that not every game is going to be a 20, 30-point blowout, especially against a great team like the Bulls. But, I mean, yikes. We only won by 3. We had like a 27-point lead earlier, and you guys cut back into it. And I guess that's my only gripe is sometimes I think the Suns get a little too cocky and just saying. Well, I mean, we don't want to be doing that in the playoffs.
One more point is...
Don't cancel me, Suns fans.
One more point is that Matt Thomas on my Bulls is probably the equivalent of Landry Shamet on your Suns. Because I'm tired of this dude. All he does is just take a lot of threes, and he's undersized, and he gets screwed like every time.
What happened with what's his name? Hill? 2 minutes, 3 for 3, 2 threes, 8 points. Who is that guy? I don't even know who that was.
Yeah, Malcolm Hill.
That would have been like the greatest performance ever if he would have won the game.
But we signed him originally, I think, to like a 10-day. And then, I don't know, he might be on a second 10-day right now. Or,
awesome.
I don't know, maybe he's on a non-guaranteed 2-way. I'm not really too sure. I mean, he doesn't get huge minutes. Like you saw, he only played like in the last 2 minutes. But I don't know, like, I was kind of impressed. He has shown some flashes, though, of being like pretty solid. So hopefully, like,
he can stick around.
Maybe he can get more minutes. But with Billy Donovan there, you're probably not going to get that.
That's one thing I was super optimistic with when the virus was taking over the NBA and the NFL and all that. I was like, you know what, this is actually kind of a good thing because players can step in and Bismack Biyombo can get signed and show that they can play. I mean, think of how many G League players there are and just how many guys are just fighting and scratching and clawing to get into the NBA and just show that they can play, man. It's freaking awesome. So that was one good thing. And I'm glad that, knock on wood, that the NBA is kind of, health and safety protocols have kind of settled down, knock on wood. I hope I didn't just jinx it like I almost jinxed the Suns earlier. Suns Geek says Suns in 4, or else you Bucks fans, everyone here is unsubbing. What? Suns in 4. Please don't unsub to me. Please don't cancel me.
I was looking at that comment by Iverson Vlogs where he said, "Did y'all see the video of Benny the Bull trying to distract Book, but security came after him?" Is that why on the second free throw he shot, like they waved it off and made him shoot it again on that one?
I don't know.
I don't think
I saw that either. I saw someone tweet about it, but I didn't actually see it.
I know they waved off a free throw for his, and they're like, "No, you got to reshoot it or something." Like, maybe that's what happened. I don't know.
Yeah, I assume it's possible. I don't know, but the NBA is definitely out to troll Booker on that. There was a fan in the stands in Chicago in a Raptors costume. I don't know how he got in the game with that, but yeah. So I don't know.
Especially in Chicago, because they're really like very tight on what you bring into the game. Like when I went to Indiana, like they didn't care really. Like I mean, they were kind of very lenient, but
Dude, this was
Chicago,
pre-COVID, but like I remember going to a game. One of my buddies had like a big old sign, and I mean it was pretty big, and they barely let him in with it. He had to like fold it up, and I'm like, come on, man, this was pre-COVID too. It's like that's just ridiculous.
wait, he had to bring the sign in like to the
Yeah,
arena?
like he had to like fold it up first just to get it in. He couldn't like just hold it normally. So it got the sign was all like, yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's weird because like at the Bulls games they have like a poster thing where you can like make your own like from there and stuff. But
take notes, Phoenix Suns. Any final thoughts on this game before you comment though? Let me just say this: Devin Booker, 38 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 turnover, 14 for 23 from the field. He had 5 threes made, and I tweeted this earlier. I said Devin Booker playing at an all-star level, or saying Devin Booker is playing at an all-star level is an understatement. He is playing at an elite level. I don't really know if I have any other final thoughts. I mean, Jay Crowder, had a quiet double-double. He had 6 assists as well, almost a triple-double. Chris Paul played great. DeAndre Ayton was okay. He had a really big game against the Wizards. He's still kind of coming back from injury. And then, JaVale McGee was great off of our bench.
It seemed like, because he was on a minutes restriction, I think, and he was still more productive in that time than Vucevic.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say it kind of canceled out the whole Vucevic thing, but I felt like DeAndre Ayton had a bigger impact because, he was still rim running and playing great defense, and he looked more active than he looked more active than Vucevic did, in my opinion. One thing I do want to say, and I think we'll put a bow on this game, is Cameron Johnson, 22 points. He only had 2 oh wait. Yeah, I was getting my numbers mixed up. 2 for 8 from the field, 2 threes, only 6 points. Cam Johnson, prior to this game, he was kind of on fire, man. He had a streak of a lot of, double-digit games and was making threes and shooting lights out, but it seemed that he might have cooled off this game, but that's okay. I mean, it's just one game. He'll save it for tomorrow against the Sixers. Any final thoughts? Any final thoughts, man, on this game, or any thoughts on tomorrow's game against the Sixers, even though you'll probably be on the channel to talk about it?
I mean, I guess to leave it on a quote, the Bulls, we're accepting an L, but we're rejecting an L, because we're accepting this loss, but we're rejecting a leader. We need a leader. I think Derozan, he's the guy that'll do it by example, but not the guy that's like going to be the vocal presence necessarily. The guy that's going to be talking all the time. That's probably the biggest thing that we need to find, whether it's by the trade deadline or whether it's just like I said, a team meeting or something. But yeah, I mean, that something's got to happen there.
Speaking of that, Suns fans, please stick around because we're almost an hour in and we're going to be talking about the NBA trade deadline. And I do want to get your thoughts, obviously, on what you think the Bulls are going to do, but I want to get your thoughts on a lot of teams. So please stick around, you guys. We're almost an hour in, and please don't hate on Bismack Biyombo. He didn't play tonight. He didn't have a chance to show how good he was. But yeah, that basically puts a bow on that. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. But first off, we've had a little bit of activity prior to the NBA trade deadline. The Portland Trailblazers and the Clippers making a crazy deal. 5-player trade. Norman Powell. It was Norman Powell, Robert Covington for Eric Bledsoe, former Phoenix Suns legend. Justice Winslow, who I kind of feel bad for. Keon Johnson and a 2025 second-round pick via Detroit. And then I think just yesterday, Karis LeVert coming back home to Cleveland, which I'm super happy for. I've been on that Cleveland bandwagon. So happy for the season that they are having. They traded. I think they also traded a second-round pick for Ricky Rubio. This is kind of more of like a salary deal, in my opinion. And obviously Ricky Rubio's injured. He was having an incredible season for the Cavs before he got hurt. So any thoughts on these trades just off the top of your head, and then we'll kind of dive into more trade deadline talk.
I mean, I think starting off with the Clippers Blazers one, for me, I think it's a good move for the Clippers in the sense where it's like, they're being safe for this season just in case, like, you don't know, like, first of all, you don't know if Kawhi is coming back. And second of all, you don't know if Paul George is going to need surgery. I think they said like February 24th or something is like when they might find out like, the dire answer or something like that. But yeah, like getting someone like Powell who averages like 19 a game this season, and then Robert Covington, who I've slandered Robert Covington myself. I don't know if I've done it really on your channel. I've done it a lot like to several people, but I'm not a Robert Covington fan. But at the end of the day, I think he is the lesser of two evils with Eric Bledsoe. And you might not agree with that because you are a Suns fan, but I just don't think Bledsoe in the playoffs is a guy that you necessarily want to rely on. I think that he's inconsistent. He's a little bit, in a way like Westbrook. They call Bledsoe mini LeBron. He's more like mini Westbrook because he's even smaller than Westbrook, and he plays more like that than I would say LeBron. And it's just like, I don't know, the Clippers also getting rid of Keon Johnson and like Justice Winslow.
A nice young player in Keon Johnson. You never know what you're getting with that. So
I mean, yeah, like they could have maybe kept him for a little bit longer, but of course, at the end of the day, it's not like a huge loss when you got 2 stars on your team when you're fully healthy. And then Justice Winslow, he was a solid defender, but at the same time, this guy was a liability at times. I don't know if you saw when they played like the Thunder, and that was when like Shea hit that game winner and he did that like stupid dance or whatever. Like, I don't know if you saw that. That was kind of on Justice Winslow. Like he was terrible down the stretch of that game. I think he even missed like 2 clutch free throws.
His career just has not took off, and obviously it's been because of injuries. But even when he's healthy, it just doesn't seem like he's been that. Like he hasn't lived up to what his 7th pick status or whatever he was picked. So kind of feel bad for him though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and honestly though, like it just doesn't make too much sense for the Blazers. It seems like someone even said it on Twitter, like seems like they're just trying to test Damian Lillard to see how far this thing goes, where it's like, I'm not running from the grind, I'm staying loyal, and they're just like pushing him to the limits until he's eventually like, you know what, I'm done. And now you hear like rumors about almost everyone else on Portland. Like the Pelicans are interested in CJ, and like Nurkic might be on the block. Like seems like everyone is available except for Damian Lillard. So they might, want to try and put more around him. But at the same time, it's like Eric Bledsoe isn't that. Justice Winslow isn't that. Like these guys aren't going to move the needle right now. Meanwhile, you just gave up Robert Covington, he's very, very inconsistent on offense and probably misses more open threes than me. Like I bet if we did a 3-point shootout, like I'd probably win because now if we were contested, he'd probably school me because
he's a good defender. He's a good defender.
And as a defender, like you said, like he's still really good, and he adds that to a Clippers team that kind of needs some defense, but they play with energy too. And Norman Powell's a good defender, so I think it's a good move, especially if the Clippers, Kawhi and Paul George come back and they're 100%. Then I don't know, like that's probably a team that your Suns don't want to face, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, I don't want to take credit for this next point because somebody else brought this up, that I don't think they made this trade without talking to Dame first. And obviously, we can't predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen with all this. I'm sure they talked to Dame, but somebody else made this point that I'm sure Dame probably said, yeah, do it. But like, what are you going to do next? Now it's all about what are you going to do next?
And to be fair, like they did just let go of Neil Shea, like about a month or 2 ago now.
I actually had to Google their GM's name because I forgot who it was. It's Joe Cronin. And I guess Damian Lillard spoke highly of Joe Cronin in the past. And I guess he's kind of like, he's not the full-time GM. He's like their intern or whatever, but he could make the decisions going forward in the future. So,
but of course, like we don't know if their connections may be as strong as like Dame's and Neil Shea's was.
Right.
Because he's maybe only been there for so many years on a limited role. So they're probably not quite as close. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did the deal without telling him. Personally, I don't think
it is possible.
I mean, the only guy that you'd probably think like every trade goes through is like LeBron, just because like it's like, oh, the GM activated.
Yep.
Like Yeah, I don't know if you even saw
Mhm.
what he said about like the trade deadline coming up. He's like, if we have a chance to get better, like we'll do it.
I've heard some of the biggest national media people say that LeBron is the GM. Like, I'm not even joking. So it's,
And I
yeah.
think honestly, like I agree with it. I do think like he has like input in almost every single decision.
In all
Maybe if they sign
fairness, I
like
mean, if I were the GM and LeBron was on my team, I'd probably have him be the GM too. But
I'm sure like the two-way contracts, like, that's not
yeah, he
something
probably
he
doesn't
really
care
cares
about
about.
that.
But I mean, like maybe signing people, like he was high on getting, well, Dwight Howard the year they won the title, Tyson Chandler the year before that. So it's like
Yep.
he kind of has a move with everything. He influenced the Heat to draft Shabazz Napier, and then he left them a week later and went back to Cleveland. So like they listen to almost everything he says.
All right. Um, I guess really my final thoughts on the whole Portland and Clippers trade, and I feel like everything's been said about this already, is even if Kawhi does come back, we don't know what he will be at. But next season, that's the thing. When they're fully healthy, they could be a really scary team because obviously they won this trade. As of right now, they won this trade. Again, maybe Portland makes some kind of big moves, but I don't know what the future looks very foggy in Portland with or without Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, who apparently the Pelicans are interested in CJ McCollum. I don't know if you saw that from Woj, but yeah, so those are my final thoughts. They're going to be a very tough team to beat. And, we'll see what happens with Paul George. But, Norm Powell and Robert Covington, that's a solid trade, in my opinion. And again, my thoughts on the whole, Cavs and Pacers trade. I don't think the Pacers are going to, quote, blow it up, but they're borderline. They're obviously making salary moves and they're trying to get whatever they can get. We'll have to see what happens with Sabonis and Turner. But that team has a lot of question marks. They're probably not going to be a contender for a very long time. So, any thoughts on the Pacers Cavs trade? Oh, are we? Oh, we still here?
Wait,
Did you
you
hear
see
any of
me?
that? Yeah, I see you. I think you
Well,
might have froze. I
actually,
don't know if I froze or if
actually,
you froze.
I don't know. Like both of us froze at the same time, but I heard you
Okay.
said like the Cavs, and then like it froze.
Oh, well,
Um,
I basically just said, I actually just completely forgot what I just said. I basically just said, I don't think did you hear my whole rant on the Pacers? How I don't think they're in full rebuild mode?
uh, not quite.
Okay, well,
But yeah, well, I guess I will say though, like, I don't know. I thought it was kind of a decent trade for both sides, really, because it's like on the Pacers side, you add in, yeah, it is a lottery protected pick. You also get a few second round picks, which personally for me, I feel like if you're given like 3 or so picks for a player, like Karis LeVert, I think that's probably fair. I'm not one of those guys that's like you got to throw like, so and so many picks like how the Clippers did for Paul George necessarily. Of course,
right.
like the background context of that is that it's not really a trade just for Paul George to trade for Kawhi Leonard too. Like it's how they got both of them because no PG, no Kawhi. But I think like the trade here, like you're getting 3 picks for Karis LeVert. I think that's pretty solid. And then you also get Ricky Rubio, who his contract it'll free up some salary as well in the summer. A lot of people think that Rubio might just go back to the Cavs because I guess that is a possibility. So they'd almost get him back, and then you also add in Karis LeVert, who, he's already, you know, people always talk highly of Karis LeVert, one of the like better teammates in the league, they say, and he adds him like kind of a combo wing, combo playmaker. He's already got that, who is it? Oh, Rondo. Rondo said like
Yep.
now you got some serious lob threats here that you haven't had since Brooklyn, kind of taking shots at Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis. But the point is, like, he's kind of right. It's like having, Evan Mobley and being really reunited with Jared Allen because they were in Brooklyn together. So it's like that makes them really tough. And then you also look at, like, they don't even have Colin Sexton back, who averaged like
Right.
25 points a game last
He was
season.
playing great. And he played good before he got hurt, too.
Yeah, and then also, like, if they do manage to get Ricky Rubio back, and then because I think personally Rondo's probably going to retire after the season, and
Probably
Ricky
see that.
Rubio, I think he already put out his retirement plan, like when his kid gets in school. So I think it's
Right.
like in 3 years. But
Right.
he could come back and be like that backup point guard to Garland for the next several years. Kevin Love's looking like, I think honestly he's probably the sixth man of the year. Like I know a lot of
Kevin
people
Love
like it.
has been great.
Yeah, a lot of
He's
people are on
been
the
off the court too. I feel like he, obviously mental health is a huge deal, but I feel like he might have passed that whole mental health issues he was having. He was on a great interview with JJ Redick, who has a great podcast, by the way, love or hate JJ Redick. And he was just speaking highly of, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen and really just the Cavs culture and his season and how great he's been. And you're right. He's arguably the sixth man of the year, in my opinion. He's looked close to that Kevin Love that we saw in those championship Cavs teams. You know what I mean?
And I think as a D Rose fan, I kind of saw a lot of this
No, my beer is not empty.
with his kind of rejuvenation season with the Timberwolves, where it's almost like it's not only was he playing his best basketball in a while, his most fun basketball, but he also is kind of being a bigger leader for these guys. Kevin Love last year, there were rumors about him being toxic, he wanted out. He's like, I'm done. Now he looks like the guy that kind of my Bulls need. We need a guy that's being a leader like that. And again, like I said, Alex Caruso is one of those guys, but not having him hurts. But my point is that having a guy like that in Kevin Love coming off the bench, and that's another thing too. He doesn't really care if he's starting anymore. 2014 Kevin Love, he'd probably have a problem with it because this dude's a top 10, top 15 player in the whole NBA. But he's at a point now where it's I can contribute this way off the bench. And I know Tyler Hero's having a great year. I just think personally Kevin Love's been more impactful. I think he would be the sixth man of the year.
Also, I know I sound like a complete Cavaliers fanboy. I've been on their bandwagon and all that, but I saw an interview with their GM, Colby Altman, and it was kind of more of a personal interview. It wasn't hey, the Cavs and all that stuff, but he seems like a really good dude. He's done a lot for that team, and he's really passionate about his job and the great season that the Cavaliers are having. And just real quick on the Pacers, what I said basically before we froze, and you kind of brought this up with the whole draft picks and everything. I basically just said, we don't know what's going to happen with Sabonis and Turner, but they're basically going to kind of rebuild without officially announcing they are rebuilding. They could get some good pieces down the road and use those draft picks for something, and we'll just have to see. But I do think the future of the Pacers and the Blazers are very foggy. And now, even before the deadline and after, what are the Pacers and Blazers going to do next? We'll have to see. And, I've seen, Rubio come back to Phoenix. I want Ricky Rubio back. Ricky Rubio does not get enough credit for what he did with the Phoenix Suns team because, everybody talks about the bubble and all that. And yes, he was on those teams, but, he was basically our quarterback. Every time he was not on the court, our offense sucked. And he was a big contributor to this turnaround before we got Chris Paul. So, before we talk more about the trade deadline, just any final thoughts on, the Bulls, Suns, any of these trades that we talked about? Any thoughts on that before I kind of pick your brain a little bit?
I mean, not too much. I mean, of course, the Pacers, it's going to be hard for them to go full rebuild. I feel like they won't trade Sabonis. It just doesn't seem like something too likely. We're only 3 days away. There's not enough chatter about it. I feel like there's not as many offers that could be placed. And then also you can't even trade Brogdon because of his contract.
I totally forgot about him, to be honest.
I mean,
he's been injured this year.
Out.
Yeah, I'm like, that's why I forgot about him. I'm like, I
think he played one game since that Bulls Pacers game I went to.
He's a good player, though.
His Achilles injury. Yeah. And he is, yeah. And I mean, he'll probably find his way out in the summer or something. But they're gonna have to wait before they even get started on that. And the Blazers, I just don't know what's going on really. I do like when players stay loyal, and I think I respect Dame for that. And hopefully his management can repay him the favor and give him someone good around him, players that fit. I won't say someone good, no one's good on the Blazers. Having CJ, having Nurkic, they're nice, but they don't really fit with Dame. And I think
that's why I keep saying the next step, what's going to happen next after the trade deadline, whatever happens at the trade storyline, fine. But like, what happens after that? That's what
And
really
they
matters.
need durable stars too. Like
Yeah.
they can't be having like all these injuries. How many like the last or so years, it seems like everyone was like, if the Blazers were healthy, it's starting to sound like if Jamal Murray was healthy.
Suns fans, if you know about the whole if Jamal Murray was healthy thing, you guys are real Suns fans. Oh man.
Jamal Murray was healthy, Damian Lillard would have a championship.
If Jamal Murray was healthy, the Lakers would be number 1 in the West. And I'm sorry, I got to troll when I have the opportunity to troll. Shout out to Coda Kid. This is a guy, like I mentioned earlier, that's been a big supporter of my channel for a long, long time. He said, Ricky helped start the Valley culture. And you know what? Speaking on that, shout out to Kelly Oubre, man. He was the one that actually seemed like he wanted to be here for a long time. He started the whole Valley Boys thing and loved the city and loved the fans. But Ricky Rubio was right there too, man. And shout out to, Roy said it too, and Kelly Oubre, Coda. So, yeah, we'll have to see. I've seen a couple questions, about Eric Gordon, coming to the Phoenix Suns. There's been a lot of rumors about that.
He almost did. I don't know if you remember. Well, no, I don't know if you remember, like, way back in the day when he signed that offer sheet with Phoenix.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then they, like, New Orleans matched it.
Yeah.
And
I remember they brought him in, like, on, like, I don't know if it was a red carpet, but they, like, brought him in and were talking to him and shaking hands and everything. And I just remembered something happened.
I think that was, like, 10 years ago or something.
Yeah.
He was really like, mad, though, with New Orleans, like, after that.
Yeah. I don't know. Just... we'll have to see about Eric Gordon. I'm not too crazy about it. If Suns fan, that's one thing I haven't really talked about on my channel or even in live streams. Maybe he is the guy that puts a team like the Suns or a contender over the hump. He's a great player and he has a history with, Chris Paul and all that. And I've heard he's a really good dude too. But I'm not too crazy about an Eric Gordon trade. Maybe for the right price. I don't want to give up too much. But then again, the Suns are in win now mode, and you got to do whatever you have to do to, get these players in. So
just do Eric Gordon for Landry Shamet.
Exactly. Like if it's something simple, yeah, sure. But I don't know. I'm not trying to sound like a hater or like a hot take or anything. I'm not too sure about an Eric Gordon trade, but I could be way wrong. Maybe he is the guy that puts us over the hump. You got any thoughts on that?
I think he could help a team for sure. I don't know if Phoenix would be the team necessarily. I don't know if he would be like the best fit scenario. I think he would fit in like with Phoenix. I just think there's probably some other teams where he'd fit in better. I think last time I checked, isn't he leading the league in 3-point percentage, or he's second or something?
Yeah. I feel like he's having a really good season, but nobody's talking about it because he plays for the Houston Rockets. So
another guy that is having a season like that, at least as of late, Gary Harris, also a future 76er in about
some
4 days.
Some Suns fans out there have him on the whole trade target list for the Suns. That's been a guy I've always been a fan of. Good defensive player, can hit the three and been around the league for a while now, kind of a veteran. Any thoughts on Gary Harris to the Suns possibly?
I think that would be way better than Landry.
He's been someone I've always been a fan of.
And one thing, this is what people don't realize as well last year, when the Suns swept the Nuggets, they didn't have Gary Harris. Right. in the past, they've always competed. Why? Because they've had Gary Harris that they could put on maybe the other team's best perimeter players.
Devin Booker.
Remember Devin Booker, or Chris Paul is who would have been.
He's been injured too, though, I think, but he's still a good player.
He has had his injuries. He's been pretty healthy for the last several games now, and I'll pull up his stats here. But when they played, Damian Lillard the first time in 2019, who was the reason why? It was Gary Harris. In 2020 in the bubble, when they played Donovan Mitchell in that insane first round series,
that was an incredible series.
And he struggled in Game 7 because they put Gary Harris on him. When Kawhi and Paul George, mainly Paul George, Kawhi had kind of that one bad half, but they had Gary Harris guarding both those guys. So he's extremely underrated. I think he could help any team. I think he can help any contender. I'd like him on the Bulls personally, but I just think we have a lot of guards, so maybe it's hard to necessarily get him in here. But I don't know. I think he's pretty good. So and I was finding the stats over the past 35 games this year. He's averaged 14 points, about 2.5 rebounds, 2 assists. Obviously, he's one of the best defenders in the league, shooting 46% from from the field, 41% from three, 85% from the free throw line.
That's incredible shooting percentages. I don't
That's a
care if
guy
they're
you
playing
want
for
on
the
your team.
Magic. That's freaking awesome.
That's a guy you want on your team right there.
And, like I said, he's got experience. And I feel like maybe one reason he might be overlooked is because he does play for a really bad Orlando Magic team with a bunch of guards. And, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is. For whatever reason, that's been a player I've always liked. And don't get me wrong, I've always liked Eric Gordon too. I mean, he's a pretty good player throughout his career, but a lot of Suns fans are like, oh, Eric Gordon this, Eric Gordon that. And I'm seeing like articles and videos on him. I'm just like, I'm not that crazy about it, but maybe for the right price. Like I never expected to, Torrey Craig to have the impact that he did on last year's Suns team. And, he was always a player that I liked, and we'll just have to see. So don't listen to Suns Geek when it comes to potential trade targets.
Me and Torrey Craig go way back to the handshake about 3 years ago, our iconic moment.
You shook his hand?
I shook his hand. I went to this is when he was on the Nuggets, and I always wanted to see like Jokic play in person and stuff. So it was a Nuggets game in Indiana, and it's funny because now he's on the Pacers. But
right.
Back then he was on the Nuggets, and I'm like, yo, like, and I was trying to give people high fives, and I'm like, yo, like Monte Morris, and it's like no, and I'm like, yo, like Jamal Murray, no, and I'm like Torrey Craig, and he's like, what's up, my man?
Pre-COVID, man, like if you shout out a player's name, they actually like that stuff. Like they like when you know who they are.
And you can't even touch a player probably now. Like, you probably can't do that. But he's like, yo, what's up? And I was like, yo, like me and Torrey Craig. We go way back.
And, I've seen a lot of Suns fans comment on my videos and even in this live stream, like, oh, can we get Torrey Craig back? I'm like, I don't know, only because of the contract that he signed. I think it's like a 2-year, $10 million deal. I could be way wrong on that, but I don't know. And, Iverson Vlog says James Jones better do something, even if it's a small deal. That's my whole thing. My approach from really earlier this season has been, I honestly think the Suns are going to make a tiny move, maybe 2 at max, and that'll be it. No blockbuster trade, even though I have talked about the Sabonis trades and my thoughts have stayed the same on that. I don't see how a Sabonis trade to Phoenix would work, but I just feel like a small trade might happen. Maybe Jalen Smith. I feel really bad for Jalen Smith. I kind of pick on him a lot on this channel, but I just speak the truth. And
he even shot a 3 today in the game. I don't know if you saw that.
I don't think I did actually. What did he finish with? Oh yeah, 1 for 3, 9 minutes, 2 points. Yeah,
he didn't make it though, but he shot a 3. Like, just another thing, the Bulls being embarrassing.
Jake Fisher, I think of Bleacher Report, he's kind of a guy to keep your eye on the trade deadline. By the way, he's been a guy that's known stuff before Woj and Shams and all that. He's been talking in the past about a Dario Saric, contract. They're trying to move off his contract, but then again,
he's on the team.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna lie, I almost forgot he's on the team.
I keep hearing things about, James Jones going on national, and obviously James Jones isn't going to go on the radio and be like, yeah, I'm trading this guy, I'm trading that guy. But James Jones seems pretty comfortable with his team. And I'm like, maybe we trade Dario, or maybe we trade a Jalen Smith, or maybe an Abdel Nader. But I honestly can't see the Suns making too many moves. And again, Super Mario, maybe tomorrow we're having a completely different conversation because the trade deadline is basically here. And I'm so excited. So, before I talk,
go ahead. I was just gonna say, I can see James Jones on the phone right now. Like, yeah, I'm trading DeAndre Ayton to the Bulls for Tony Bradley.
We get like breaking news, like live on this live stream. I would immediately stop this live stream and we would just go live again, separate video and all that if breaking news happened right now.
I'd have like confetti poppers like ready and stuff like that.
I'm gonna buy you a Tony Bradley jersey just to troll you.
Please don't. I'll burn it. That'll be the first jersey I burn. I've never burned any jerseys.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. What would you rather own? A Landry Shamet jersey or a Tony Bradley jersey?
Oh man, that's tough. I'd probably rather own the Landry Shamet jersey because he causes me less pain. simply because it's of my own team. If Landry Shamet was on the Bulls, this might be a different discussion, but it'd be equal. But yeah,
Right.
I've never burned a jersey. I don't know if I even told Romp this. I actually have a Ben Simmons jersey, and I've never burned it. I would burn Tony Bradley's jersey first. That's how I feel.
By the way, guys, thank you to everybody who's still in here. We've been live for over an hour, almost an hour and 30 minutes, by the way. There's been so much to talk about, and it really helps having a Bulls expert on the channel because I can just let you do all the talking. But I do appreciate you being on here. And stick around, guys. We're going to talk about the trade deadline for a little bit, and then we'll talk about whatever, and we'll probably just wrap it up. Maybe we'll go 2 hours. Who knows? We'll have to see if you're down to go for 2 hours. Real quick, before I pick your brain about the trade deadline, thank you to everybody who's in here, by the way. Kodak Kid, Roy, Iverson Vlogs. If I missed you, I apologize, but thank you to everybody that's in here. Craig and Holiday or Trey Lyles and Corey Joseph from Detroit. We need more depth at the guard position and a 4 who can be a small ball 5. I agree with you, Logan, but let me just remind you guys that we are not fully healthy right now. We have a lot of guys out. It's going to take some time for them to come back. But some of the names that you did mention there, I do like. I mean, Justin Holiday, I'm not trying to talk politics here. He is an anti-vaxxer. I don't know if James Jones wants to mess with that, but besides that, he is a pretty good player. Trey Lyles, that's been a guy who, hasn't really lived up to his draft, stock, but pretty nice player here and there. And Corey Joseph, lots of experience in this league. I think he won a championship with the Spurs. Could be interesting. Any quick thoughts on that?
I mean, I feel like of those guys necessarily, like in the point of maybe needing a small ball 4 to play a 5, I feel like, I mean, you could kind of even insert, you could get Thaddeus Young, or you could even insert like guys like Crowder or Cam Johnson in those roles. I feel like personally, like from what I see, is the Suns need like another backup guard that can like be reliable with handling the ball and like kind of distributing the ball.
Facts.
Because
something campaign could improve on. He could improve on that.
Because, like, say, for instance, last year, like Chris Paul and his shoulder issue, at that point, it's like someone needs to take his role, or at least a bigger part of his role or something like that. And personally, like, I know Devin Booker is a solid playmaker. Of course, he's not like, Chris Paul, and he's not like a wizard with the basketball or anything like that. And, these other guys on the team as well, like Landry Shamet or Cameron Payne, like they're not that. As being someone who's a Bulls fan, and we don't have Lonzo Ball, who's probably our best distributor of the basketball right now. And we have Ayo Dosunmu, who's done a great job, but, even he's just a rookie. And the ball is usually in the hands of Levine and DeRozan. I mean, you kind of saw how that went tonight, for example. Like that, it just doesn't really work out that much. I feel like the Suns, maybe Corey Joseph could help. I don't know if he's necessarily the, floor general per se, that can like get everybody involved. I feel like he's more of like just a pick and roll guy.
I feel like we'd have to see a trade in hindsight for that, but I would be open to that,
But I don't know. I just think like, targeting maybe some guards that could kind of get everyone involved or something.
And I guess maybe that's where I'll speak positive about Eric Gordon, because if we're going to trade for Corey Joseph, you might as well get like an Eric Gordon who can actually win you a couple games. And I think he has more experience than Corey Joseph. But I'd be open. I like again, let me read you the list from that comment from Logan here. I mean, Torrey Craig, former Phoenix Sun. We all see what he can do. Justin Holiday, nice, serviceable player. Trey Lyles, Corey Joseph. And, I mentioned Thaddeus Young. That's been a guy that's really been tossed around in rumors. We'll have to see. And then, Roy said, what about Goran Dragic, former Phoenix Suns legend? And I mean, actual legend. I love Goran. I don't know. I mean, I think he's had a rough season due to injuries, and I think personal problems too. I think he's been away from the Raptors and all that. Hopefully everything's okay with that. But
which is a shame because the Raptors have like no bench. They've been playing their top 5 like almost 40 minutes a game. Like
haven't they been playing pretty good as of late too? Like they have,
but eventually, like that's kind of like the Tom Thibodeau mindset where it's gonna wear and tear on you. I think right now, like Van Vliet and Siakam, they're like top 2 in minutes per game, like in the whole league. So
Siakam's been playing better as of late too.
They could use like a guy like that off the bench. And Dragic, like maybe he won't be the all-star he was like a few years ago. Maybe he won't play like he did in the bubble.
He'd be
Like I thought he
great
was
off
really
the
good
bench,
mobile,
though. Yeah.
but yeah, he could be like that 6 man, probably be in contention right there with like Love and Hero this year.
And, something I'm forgetting about, and I don't think I've really talked much about this on my channel in the past, but the buyout season for a lot of contenders, even teams that are, trying to make the playoffs, like the Lakers, for example, maybe, could look at the buyout market.
That's so
Maybe
sad.
that stuff I need. Don't get me started on the Lakers.
That's so
We could
that's
have a
so
we could have a
sad.
2-hour live stream on how terrible the Lakers are, bro. But yeah,
You mean the basement team in LA?
I hate the Lakers, man. You know what? I never defend the Lakers, but I will kind of defend some of their fans because some of their fans can actually spit facts on how terrible the Lakers have been this year and how it is not working. So yeah. Anyways, but we'll see. I don't know. I just want to pick your brain though. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Let me just read you a list of the potential most active trade deadline teams, in my opinion. Now, before I read this list, some of these teams have question marks. So remember that as I'm listing them off. So if you disagree with one, it's probably because there's a question mark. Here are Suns Geek's most active teams at the trade deadline, per my opinion.
All right.
We already talked about the Indiana Pacers, obviously. Boston Celtics, Washington Wizards. Oh, God, don't get me started on the Wizards. The New York Knicks, maybe, question mark. The Orlando Magic, they have a ton of guards, a lot of young talent. They could probably make some moves. The Los Angeles Lakers, I mean, they can't really do much, but maybe they make a couple small moves. Obviously, we talked pretty in-depth about the Blazers. Maybe the Blazers, question mark. The Pelicans, I mentioned earlier how they are interested in CJ McCollum, per Woj. Maybe. They have some nice players. They could maybe be active. I mean, David Griffin might be trying to save his job if they don't make any moves. Now, a team that's been a little, they're historically known to not make moves at the trade deadline. San Antonio Spurs, though, maybe there's a Thad Young trade in there. Maybe a couple other guys. Sacramento Kings are, I feel so bad for the Kings fans. Everyone used to crap all over the Suns. Oh, you guys haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. I'm like, dude, at least we're not the fucking Sacramento Kings, dude. Like, they are terrible. Keep Davion Mitchell, trade everybody else. They suck. So, and then
I think they need to keep like Halliburton really, and maybe Fox, but like they got a lot of guys they could move to. But
then my last team, and I'm not even going to put a question mark on this, but I'll say it: OKC Thunder, just because they have so many draft picks, they could just trade all their draft picks. So, any of those teams, you got any thoughts on? Any teams that you have your eye on in terms of the trade deadline? Really, just any of your thoughts on the trade deadline? Do you have like a hot take? What are your thoughts, man? Go ahead. I'm going to take my last final sip of my beer, and I'll let you talk.
I think even one team you could probably add to that. I don't think you said them, but like maybe even the Houston Rockets. Did you say that?
I forgot. No, I didn't. I actually forgot. I forgot about them.
Because, and not only just Gordon, but like with, Christian Wood, potentially Daniel Tice. Like, I don't even know.
Oh, yeah. He's got to be gone.
Like, yeah, I don't even know what's that whole ordeal is. I think other teams, though, the Bucks, the Heat, like they'll probably stay pretty good. The Cavs, it seems like they've already made their major move.
I love the Cavs, man.
I think the 76ers very well could make a move. And I already mentioned like with Gary Harris, but I wouldn't be surprised. Don't be surprised if maybe they pull off a surprise move for Tobias Harris. We've seen this before. With Tobias Harris when he went to Philly for the Clippers. Remember, he was the leading scorer on a team that was, really good. And it seemed like they were going to make a serious push, be like a 50-win team, and they let him go. So I could very well see that maybe happening, especially maybe like in a Ben Simmons scenario. But even without that, like, because I'm not expecting
I think the Sixers could be active.
I would say,
even without the Ben Simmons deal.
I would say Tobias Harris is more likely to be traded than Ben Simmons before the deadline. Like, I guess that might be a hot take, but I don't know. I think the Nets too. Like, I don't know if did you even mention them? Like,
I didn't mention them. I could see why they could be active because they actually are a pretty deep roster, despite what they've lost 8 in a row or whatever, and the whole Kyrie situation. But they can make some moves. I could see that.
And they even got like Harden saying like how he's, might not want to be there or something, like all these
Yeah.
reports. So maybe
Who
like
knows
they
what's
pull off
real and what's
a
not real?
stunner and
Yeah.
they get like a bunch of depth. They get some defense, get some rim protection back that they lost getting rid of Jared Allen.
Yep.
But I'm just trying to look through here. Like I guess on the West, I could see the Pelicans making a move. Maybe they do get rid of like Valanciunas now. Like maybe they very well could. Like he played good to start the year, kind of boosted his value per se. Um,
I like
you know,
Valanciunas. He's a good player.
I think the Kings though is probably like I said, I think they're probably like the team that's most likely to do something. Because you got guys like Buddy Hield and Harrison Barnes, Marvin Bagley, Alex Len. Like, teams are going to be somewhat interested in these dudes. And Hitman X, keep
Yeah.
Halliburton,
I was
Mitchell,
gonna
and
read his
Holmes.
comment too. Yeah, like I
Yeah,
forgot about Rashawn Holmes. I don't know
he's
how
been
he's been
pretty
playing
solid.
as of late, but he's pretty good player. Serviceable starter, backup big. He's a good
And
player.
I mean, he probably is maybe a little more expendable of those three,
Yeah,
for the simple fact that I think he is a little bit older. So, yeah, I mean, you could move on from him, but I think Halliburton and Mitchell are probably the two for sure. I wouldn't
because you're
even
gonna
really
need some
say,
defense with Davion Mitchell. I don't care how good or bad you are. You need defense. Keep him. Maybe keep Halliburton. Keep Holmes and trade everybody else.
I wouldn't even say like De'Aaron Fox is necessarily safe.
Oh no.
But I think the one guy that probably, I guess I will say with the Lakers, I don't think that they can make a realistic roster altering move.
Oh yeah, no.
I just
Not
don't
even
think
on
it'll
the
happen.
buyout market. Like they're screwed, man. Like
The
even if
only
they
thing
make the
that'll
playoffs, like
the only thing that'll change like the complexion of their team is if they get rid of Westbrook, and that's not
right.
going to happen because you heard people saying like there's almost no team interested in him except for maybe the Rockets who would just trade John Wall for him,
And
who
that's not going to change your fortune. It's not
which
good.
like he's not even playing, and that would be really
The
stupid in
Lakers would look
hindsight.
absolutely terrible if they traded Westbrook. It just wouldn't work.
It would look really dumb for both sides, really, because the Lakers are desperate and the Rockets, it's like you traded away Westbrook to get Wall, and then you traded Wall to get Westbrook again. That would make no sense. But I think the one thing, maybe the one guy that probably would be best to move right now, is probably Julius Randle.
Yeah, I think he's been struggling as of late. I think the Knicks have been struggling as of late. I don't know what's going on with the Knicks, man.
He
It's been
simply
bad though.
signed his contract extension for like 4 years, got paid. Now he doesn't want to play the game of basketball the right way. And it's kind of like frustrating to even watch. But the simple thing is like right now he's at least
They're
playing.
24 and 30. They're on a 3-game losing streak. Yikes.
Yeah, like at least right now, like he's still playing somewhat okay. Like he's playing nowhere near he was last year, but he's playing like somewhat solid. Where it's like
I've
I
heard
could
things
maybe
that's been
gamble
about
on him.
his effort. That's what I've kind of heard. I don't know if that's true. I
Mhm.
haven't watched enough Knicks games or highlights. I've heard just been his
It,
effort.
it is very bad. His effort's terrible.
Yeah. And
And lately,
Knicks
like
fans, they don't put up with that. Like you don't play, you don't put in effort, you're gonna get booed.
I mean, in the recent games, like really RJ has kind of been the main guy. I've said all
He's
year
been
long, I
great.
think, and I've said all year long, I think really Rose is the best player on the team. Like when they're all available, like Randall's kind of taken a huge step down after getting paid. One of
The
those
whole Knicks team
situations,
has.
yeah. So I think like you kind of saw it maybe with like Deion Waiters or Hassan Whiteside, for example. But I don't know. I think like now is the best time to move him because as you get more into that contract, until maybe the last year, like he's probably not going to care. But even
Right.
by the last year, he probably still won't care because he's already got like 100 and whatever $1 million off this deal. He's like, you know what? I'm set. I'm like, who cares?
Shout out to Hitman X. He, by the way, he does have a YouTube channel, which is Hitman X, and he does upload videos from time to time, but he spits facts. That's why he's been on this channel before. And, Hitman X is a good friend of the channel. So, he says for the Rockets, trading Westbrook would lead to a buyout to save money. I still think the Rockets have a bright future, Jalen Green and all them. But yeah, that was a team I completely forgot about. I probably looked at their record and just completely forgot. But yeah, they could definitely make some moves. I think Daniel Tice is out of there. Maybe Christian Wood, but yeah, they're gonna have some decisions to make. I'm sure they'll be on the phones a lot
I
that
just
day.
think like with the Westbrook, if he was traded to Houston and say they did try to buy him out, like that would ruin like a lot of their future because
Right.
they're probably gonna have to like stretch and waive him, which is gonna
Yeah.
take up several years of their contract. I mean, that's like what the Pistons did with Josh Smith. And I think this is the last year they're paying Josh Smith. When was the last time he was on the team? 7 years ago?
When was the last time Luol Deng played for the
Luol Deng and the
Lakers and they're
Lakers.
still
I think
paying
that's another
him?
one I was gonna bring up. Like, I think they're still paying him. I think this is his last year. He hasn't played on the team in like half a decade. So
Dude,
it's like,
there's got to
would
be
you want to
some
be
rule.
paying
Like, if you're still under contract, you should be like a consultant or something. Like, work for the
like
team, damn it.
in a contract like that too, where you're getting like 44 million or so? Um, I'm interested to see how many years is actually on that. But like, you're making 44 million a year. Okay, so he would be a free agent the next year. So that's 88 or so $1 million that you're making, and you're stretching it probably. Usually, people stretch about I think 8 to 10 years or million per year. So you'd be paying Westbrook until 2032, right? And then like he'll probably retire in what, like
Bro, that's
2028,
10 years from
2027.
now.
He'll be like 5 years retired, still getting 10 million a year from the Rockets. I don't think they want to do that. They'd have to renegotiate, and knowing Westbrook and how stubborn he is, he probably won't want to renegotiate. He'll be like, "Give me my money or like deal with it or whatever."
I will say this isn't really trade deadline related. I feel like Westbrook's kind of gotten a bad rap this year. Like, yeah, he's had a bad season. He's not putting up a triple double. I'm sorry. I'm a Westbrook defender,
I
but
mean,
it
I
is a
will
team
say though, like
effort. They're pretty bad, man. It's not just all on Westbrook. It
I
is, but
think
it
like
isn't.
for me personally, like I think Westbrook, when they got him, I had a feeling they were gonna not be quite as good because I don't know. He just seems like a guy that it's very hard to handle him. It's very hard to overcome him, as some people have also put it. He had Kevin Durant for 9 years. He had Paul George for 2. He had Bradley Beal, James Harden, and if none of those guys can do it, then in all that time, then what makes you think that an aging, injury-prone LeBron and even an injury-prone AD is going to be able to do it with a bunch of other veterans that are kind of washed up, besides maybe Carmelo Anthony, and I mean Malik Monk's young, but I mean he's played well. Other than that, everyone else has not really done anything for that team. So it's like I don't know. Like for me, he's probably one of the bigger problems personally because I
Yeah.
just don't think that you can overcome him. But at the same time, like it doesn't exclude everyone else. Like Anthony Davis started off the year horrible. LeBron before his first injury wasn't playing that good. So like maybe in those games, like you could put on them. You could also put on the fact that like LeBron wanted this team. Like this is what you asked for. So
Fact. Yeah. I don't know, man. I think that's pretty much it for me. I don't really know if I have anything else in terms of trade deadline to talk about. I kind of just wanted to pick your brain on some of that stuff. I think this has been a really good show. We're probably going to be back tomorrow talking more about this, and who knows? Maybe we could be having a completely different conversation. Again, we are planning on going live tomorrow with Romp 2.0. I do work tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure I'll be off, and we'll be able to go live and everything because Romp and I have been talking about that behind the scenes. We might even have Philly Take with RB on the channel. Maybe he does his own channel and does play-by-plays and all that. He said he might be able to join, may not be. We'll see. But any final thoughts, man? Any final takeaways before we close this out? We've almost gone for an hour and 40 minutes. So any final thoughts, man?
all I'm saying is Jakob Pertl for Tony Bradley. Not straight up, obviously.
I watched a video about Jakob Pertl being somehow the Bulls are interested. I was like, what? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe he's a trade target. He's a good player.
I feel like, he's a player we'd probably have to give like a first, a second, and then maybe one of those players. Whether it is Tony Bradley, like that would be optimal for me. But
And again, the Spurs don't make trades, but I mean, maybe
it would probably have to be like Troy Brown Jr. or something like that, which I'm also fine with. I mean, he's not a guy that's like we need to hold on to him like for the sake of our team, but I don't know. Like he's someone that could also add some defense, some rim protection, some rebounding, and that's what we need. along with kind of like a vocal presence. But yeah.
All righty, you guys. So again, we'll be live most likely tomorrow with Romp 2.0 and talking all things Suns and Sixers. And then we'll probably talk more about the deadline, even though I feel like we did a pretty damn good job of covering it, on tonight's show. And once again, check out my good friend Super Mario Hoops channel. Follow him on Twitter. I'll make sure to edit the description later and leave all that stuff down below. Make sure to Hulk smash the like button. We went for over an hour and 40 minutes. So for those of you, who are watching this tomorrow, I really appreciate it. I think this was a good show, man. I was kind of on fire tonight, and you helped carry me with all your Bulls talk. And I guess my final thoughts are that the Phoenix Suns are the best team in the NBA, and it's unpredictable, but I honestly have a good feeling about this trade deadline. I feel like this is going to be a crazy trade deadline. Make sure, if you guys are on Twitter, to get your correct sources. Make sure it's the correct Woj. Make sure it's the correct Shams. As I mentioned, Jacob Fisher from Bleacher Report is a good source, reliable source. Sometimes Chris Haynes has, stuff before Woj and Shams. So make sure to follow the right guys. Stay glued to your phone. If you're not on Twitter, keep refreshing, Google and all that. And it's going to be a crazy deadline. So gear up and stay tuned for tomorrow's live stream. And we will talk to you guys then. So make sure to Hulk smash that like button. And please subscribe for everything Phoenix Suns. If it has to deal with the Phoenix Suns, I'm going to make a video about it. And I will see you guys once I hit the correct button next time.